The Fort Erie Podcast with Brent Jones. Brent Jones starts now.
Hey, that's me. I'm Brent Jones. This is episode 84 of the Fort Erie Podcast. It's February 20th, 2024. Thanks for joining me today. I hope you had a great Family Day long weekend. One of the more bizarre holidays I think we have every year, just because, well, there was no set tradition, so to speak. I mean, your family might have specific traditions for the Family Day long weekend, but for most of us, I think it's just nice to have a long weekend in the winter. Hope you enjoyed the long weekend. Hope you got that extra day off. On today's new episode, I've got two guests coming up. I'm going to be speaking first and foremost with local model, actress, and photographer Brittney Hebbourn. She's going to be talking about everything she's got going on. And Gina Middagh, a friend of the podcast from the Crystal Ridge Dream Center. She's probably known to a lot of you by her maiden name, Gina Sloggett, but Gina is going to be joining me to talk about the Dream Center and some of the programming they have happening. We'll also talk about some upcoming community events, some local news. That's all coming up on today's episode. But the other big thing that happened last week was Valentine's Day. And I'm curious, listeners, if you had any special plans, if you went out and did anything special happen, or maybe did anything go weirdly wrong. Was not every Valentine's Day is perfect. Not every Valentine's Day is romantic, that's for sure. If you had something strange happen on February the 14th, I'd love to hear about it. Call it into the show. Leave a message on the Byrd Box, 289-599-BYRD or 289-599-2973. I have an article pulled up in front of me here from Vice. And this article is all about, like, readers shared their stories about things that have gone wrong on certain Valentine's Days past. And I just got a couple of my favorites highlighted here. The first one, this story comes from this person was 17 years old at the time this happened. She says he hired a barbershop quartet. That should probably tell you what went wrong, but she says here in her own words, I was 17 years old. It was my first Valentine's Day with my boyfriend. It was my first relationship, and he took me out for a meal at our local pub. I thought flowers and dinner would have been more than enough, but just as we started getting into our meal, 4 oldish men in red tuxedos, bow ties, and boater hats walked in. I nudged him to look because it was hilarious, but then they came to our table. I felt terrified as I realized what was about to happen. They introduced themselves in front of all the other diners, handed me a teddy bear, blew a little tuning whistle, and started singing. What's wrong with that, man? I don't know. If I had a barbershop quartet serenade me any day of the year, Valentine's Day or otherwise, I think that'd be amazing. But I can see how that might be embarrassing for a 17-year-old out at a pub. I get it. Let's see. Oh, this one's a doozy here. This guy says, I woke up next to my Valentine's date. She said her husband was on his way home. So the story goes, he says, I had gone to meet a girl for Valentine's dinner, but there were red flags early on. She started talking about her husband, which surprised me as I thought she was single. I was very unsure, but we ended up going back to her place anyway. I woke up to news that her husband was coming home and wasn't going to be too pleased. Yeah, I mean, that's a doozy of a Valentine's Day story. But dude, if there's red flags early on, I mean, ignore them at your own peril, I suppose. Anyway, I hope, listeners, that your Valentine's Day was better than a barbershop quartet and better than an angry husband coming home to find you where you shouldn't be. Aside from all that, aside from the Valentine's Day chatter, let's get into today's episode and talk about what's been making news for the last couple of weeks.
News on the Fort Erie Podcast.
Here's a look at what's making news in our town. You might have heard earlier this month, BGC Niagara had to close their pool at E.J. Freeland Community Center due to some kind of mechanical malfunction. As far as I know, everything is back up and running again. The town of Fort Erie is seeking public input on some neighborhood traffic calming studies. These studies relate to Concession Road, Far Road, and Washington Road. If you want to offer your input, visit letstalk.forterie.ca. A 29-year-old Fort Erie man was arrested on Lake Nipissing for impaired operation of a snowmobile. This followed a drunken altercation at an ice shack. This might be the most Canadian story I've heard all day. But anyway, this man faces charges and had his license suspended. A fuel thief that I talked about on the podcast last fall, he was pulling off all kinds of gas and dash type crimes, right across Niagara, including here in Fort Erie. Fill up the car, take off, not pay. I think there were 7 different gas stations targeted. Well, he was arrested last fall. He finally got his day in court this year, and he was sentenced to 90 days in jail, followed by 2 years of probation. Town Council has greenlit the 2024 budget increase of 5.5% tax increase, which sounds daunting, but in actual numbers, that's about $14 per Fort Erie household. The additional funds are to go to things like healthcare, quality of life, economic development, and infrastructure, that kind of thing. You may have heard the story about Niagara Area Children's Assistance Program. That is a mouthful, but they are in desperate need of a permanent location to operate their aid programs. They've been relying for a number of years on volunteers' homes, temporary solutions, that type of thing, but their lack of permanent space is currently jeopardizing their operations and their ability to meet rising demands. If you did not already notice, a pair of new restaurants has opened up on Garrison Road. The two restaurants, they're kind of like under the same roof. It's almost like two brands, two menus operating out of the same space. One is Wing HQ. The other one is Lukumade's Puffs. If you're not familiar, Lukumade's is a Greek dish, Greek honey puffs, like fried honey puffs. So they offer a number of sweet treats on the one side of the restaurant, and then Wing HQ is exactly what you think it is, 9 billion different flavors of wings for you to choose from. The Fort Erie Junior B Meteors are frontrunners for the Sutherland Cup. That's according to forward Liam Beamish. Fort Erie Meteors currently hold third place right now in the Golden Horseshoe Conference, have their eyes set on the Sutherland Cup with just a handful of games left to go in the regular season. If you have not heard, Fort Erie solar eclipse viewing glasses are now available. The town is essentially offering residents free solar eclipse glasses for the upcoming April 8th total solar eclipse. Supplies are limited, and the town is asking for donations of non-perishable goods in exchange for these glasses, which you can get directly from the town or the 3 branches of the Fort Erie Public Library. A development proposal could bring 119 new housing units to the former Ridgeway Crystal Beach High School property. Some nearby residents expressed concerns about this at a recent council meeting related to traffic and infrastructure and school capacity, but the developers were quick to emphasize the need for diverse and affordable housing options. A driver was arrested. This is a crazy story. This might as well be an Onion headline, but there was a man who was arrested for intentionally running over another man with his SUV on Dufferin Street following an altercation. The man driving the SUV was arrested, remains in custody, but the person who was hit is facing life-altering injuries. Fort Erie has updated its tree bylaw to protect the town's tree canopy. Residents will now generally require permits to remove mature trees of almost any size, and there will be some stiff penalties for those who are caught violating the rules. There was a domestic incident in Ridgeway. A 25-year-old male of no fixed address. He faces multiple charges after basically, forced his way into a home, refused to leave. There ended up being a standoff with the police. The canine and emergency task units were deployed. In the end, the suspect was arrested without incident. His name is not being released in order to protect the victim. Green Acres Family Restaurant. Here's a bit of good news. They're set to reopen after their annual break tomorrow, February 21st, after their annual break. The restaurant, obviously, many of you know, Garrison Road, Canadian dishes, friendly service. It's been a local favorite since 1961. They take an annual break every year, usually from mid-December to about mid-February. So go to Green Acres Family Restaurant tomorrow. The council has initiated the reconstruction of 4 tennis courts at Oaks Park. That's the tennis courts on Central Avenue, emphasizing an agreement that prioritizes public use while still accommodating Fort Erie Tennis Club's activities. And lastly, I'll mention that Pink Shirt Day is coming up. That's coming up in next week. But the District School Board of Niagara, DSBN, they are, of course, encouraging students and staff to wear pink as a symbol against bullying and a celebration of diversity. If you're not familiar with the story, it's kind of a warm, fuzzy one. This movement actually began, the pink shirt thing, began in Nova Scotia several years ago, was turned into a global movement. A student was bullied for wearing a pink shirt to school, and some of the older kids decided to hand out pink shirts to stand in solidarity with them.
Fort Erie Real Estate with Brett Jones, your friendly local realtor with RE/MAX Niagara Realty.
I've got a new listing I want to tell you all about. It's 1001 Garrison Road. That's Highway 3, just west of the Place Restaurant. This listing is going to be especially interesting if you are a builder, a developer, a contractor, investor, flipper, one of those types, because this is a 0.55 acre lot on Garrison Road. There is development potential here. I have architectural drawings that I can share with you to give you a sense of what might be possible in terms of building multiple residential dwellings on this property. Now, there is an existing structure there, which could be renovated, potentially, could be moved into, or it could be demolished to make room for new housing. There's a whole bunch of different options here, listed at $549. If you want more information on this property, call or text me at 905-626-8826. And so long as we're talking about real estate, I thought I would also mention that I helped a client lease some commercial space on Queen Street last week. Now, I don't do a ton of commercial business. I don't do a ton of leases for that matter, but I thought this one was worth mentioning because I think a lot of you who followed me for any period of time, you've listened to this podcast, you follow me on social media, you know me as a residential real estate agent. And of course, that is principally where I spend most of my time and focus. But I also wanted to let you know, dear listener, that I can help you with commercial transactions, whether that is leasing the perfect office space, whether that's selling an existing brick and mortar business. I've got your commercial needs covered too. So give me a call. Let's talk real estate. 905-626-8826. That's 905-626-8826.
The Fort Erie Podcast.
Okay, joining me on the phone right now, I'm speaking with Brittney Hebbourn. Brittney, how you doing?
I'm fantastic. How are you?
Hey, I'm doing really well, thanks. Now, normally this is the part when I'm speaking with a guest where I introduce, they're from ABC Company or they make widgets. But in your case, you got a lot of stuff going on. So Brittney Hebbourn, actor, model. You've got Brittney Lynn Photography. So you're a photographer. You do some music stuff. And every time I see your Instagram, you're on skates too. Like you do, I think you teach skating. So you do a lot of stuff.
It keeps me busy.
I guess so. How does that? I almost don't even know where to begin. But how does that happen? I mean, a lot of folks know you around town from either photography or from some of the modeling. Some of the modeling work you've done. But how most people kind of end up being known for one thing or two things. Was this a conscious decision for you to say, hey, I'm a woman of many talents. I'm going to do a whole bunch of different things, or did it kind of happen by accident?
It was kind of by accident. I mean, I've figure skated since I was 18 months old. So, I mean, that was something I grew up doing, and my mom's a coach, and my mom has coached for many years. And the love for the ice is in my maple syrup blood, I guess you could say.
Okay.
But I mean, I've been on the ice, I guess, 31 years now or something like that. We're coming up on it in September, I believe. So it's kind of hard to let that go. So the only logical next step for me was to become a coach. So that one was sticking around whether I liked it or not. I've also been into music since I was a kid. I used to play in the church, sing in the church choir, and I got picked up for some gigs when I was pretty young. I was about 6 or 7. I opened for, it was at Roselawn in Port Colborne.
Okay.
And I opened for, I think I played with the Chamber Sisters, and, I played with Tommy Cash, which was relative of Johnny Cash. And there's been a lot of small things here and there that just kept me in it. It was always interesting. There was always something new. I like to obviously keep things different and interesting for myself all the time. I get pretty bored if I get stagnant. And then, the music thing just kind of rolled into the stage life. I was part of the Miss All Canadian, actually I'm still part of the Miss All Canadian pageant circuit. I went from being a participant to now being a judge and their head photographer. So I've been involved in their circuit. I think she's been around 40 years this year. So I've been there since I was 7. And it's just all those deep roots from, falling in love with those things as a kid. And it's really hard for me to let them go. So they kind of all just found their little slot and have taken, maybe a year or two off of music, and I've taken a year or two off of this or that. But this year they seem to all be overlapping. I'm coming back into music this year. And it's a little bit much, but we're making it work.
Well, what is the real bread and butter then? I mean, is it the modeling? Is it the photography? I mean, what occupies the majority of your time?
Currently, the photography is probably my most busy because the photography also overlaps into my acting and modeling. I represent several different companies who send me, merch or gear or products or whatever it is, and then they pay me to produce content for them. So rather than hiring a photographer, I just shoot them myself. So, that plus I do weddings and I do like couples and family and lifestyle. The only thing I don't really do is like newborn photography. I'm feel a little uncomfortable to be around something so fresh, and I don't trust myself. So.
You just be honest and say babies gross you out. I mean, you could say that if you want.
They absolutely don't gross me out. I'm just so scared I'm going to drop one or something crazy, and I leave it to the professionals. There are people who are trained for that.
Well, you know what?
It's pressure. I'd rather do a wedding.
Yeah, well, you know what? It's so funny because I'd go the other way because I feel like people are very demanding at weddings. I have a daughter. I have a second daughter, due to make her arrival here in just a few weeks. And I'll tell you, like, newborns are more malleable and flexible than you might think.
It's true. And I think one of these days I need to just dip my toes in because I've got myself involved in every other type of photography. I feel like that's the only one I haven't tried. But weddings do get demanding, but I have been so blessed to work with some of the most wonderful clients, and I really haven't had any of those horror stories. And I also second shoot under like Jesse James Photography. He and I've been friends for a long time. So it's just been, I've been really fortunate.
Is that where a lot of your training, your professional expertise in that area has come from? Has been through sort of shadowing, other people, or do you have some formal training in photography, or where does your expertise come from in that category?
So I have no like formal training. I've never gone to school for it. I do take it upon myself to take like online workshops when I'm learning something new and I need help with it. I have no problem looking it up. But I always wanted it to remain my true creative outlet and to always have, full creative control over everything. And I feel like sometimes, and not in every case, I feel like sometimes school or creative stuff can pigeonhole you into a certain style. And I just, that's where my brain went with it. So I'm like, nope, I'm just going to figure it out myself. But I've had lots of mentors along the way. Again, Jesse's been a great mentor. I've worked with him for a long time now. And there's so many creatives that I can reach out to, in a second and say, hey, I'm trying to do this. How do I do this?
Wasn't it Seinfeld that said something several years ago? He was asked to speak in front of some sort of college or university class about comedy. And his message to the class was like, you're either funny or you're not. This class is not going to help you. It was something like that.
But you know what? It's true. And I do believe that you can learn to do anything you put your mind to with the right tools. But I do believe that there is a level of passion and, in a sense, like a natural skill to push you forward in that career. And I think with creative careers, that is definitely something, you have to love it. And it's hard to be taught, the base level skills of composition. And I mean, you definitely can learn, and I'm not saying it's not possible, but there's definitely a natural knack for it, for sure.
Yeah, there's a talent piece that comes with it too, right? Like you can teach me all day how to dunk a basketball, but I mean, it's just at 5'7", it's probably just not in the cards for me, right? There was a certain degree of talent you sort of innately have, or you don't, no matter what your level of technical proficiency is. So for folks around town who want to learn more about your photography business, maybe reach out to you. Do you want to maybe plug your website, your social media handles for your photography business?
Yeah, absolutely. So I've actually just amalgamated my acting modeling website and my photography website into one landing page where you can split off from there because it's kind of wild to run two different websites. And I honestly just don't have the time to upkeep both of them. So one place, And it's BrittneyLynnHebbourn.com, BrittneyLynnHebbourn.com.
Okay,
It's
perfect.
not short, but it's there.
No, but I like that you spelled it out because Brittney and Lynn are both names that could be spelled about a thousand different ways. So the clarification helps, I think.
Yes, I'm like Britney Spears with an extra T. The exact same spelling, just an extra T.
No, fair enough. So it's got to help. It's got to help with photography that you've been on sort of both sides of the camera. And, before I speak with anybody on the Fort Erie podcast, I try to poke around a little, poke around their social medias or websites, see what information I can gather, some things I might want to ask them about. And there's an image on your website that kills me because you did a shoot for Purelator. I think it was Purelator. Excuse me. What was it? Purelator? Or was one of the couriers?
It was Purelator, and actually that just popped up on my memories this year, like today, the day that we're recording this.
Yeah, it's wild to me because I paused on that photo immediately because I go, I've seen this 1,000 times before and had no idea it was you until I saw it on your website, and I go, because you're kind of dressed as like I don't know, what would you describe it, like suburban professional mom? Is that a good way to describe it?
Yeah,
I'm not a fashionista,
yeah.
But is that what the look in the photo?
Yeah, it's the blazer, the skinny jeans, the Keds.
Yeah. I was like, I've seen this photo before, and I think that's probably the job of a good model, right? Is that if it's you shouldn't be able to look there and instantly go, oh, that's my neighbor, or I know that girl, she lives down the street, Yeah,
it was such a cool job to do. It was a few years ago now, but I've had friends of mine that live all over the country, like, send me pictures and say, oh my gosh, did I just spot you at the mall? Or like, a friend of mine in Montreal, he's like, why are you in Montreal? Why is this here?
Well, I have to think, like, and I'd love to talk about some of your acting credits as well, and maybe some of the other big, modeling gigs that you've done as well. But, I don't imagine that there's a ton, unless we're talking about like Garrison Little Theater. I mean, I don't imagine there's a ton of acting and modeling opportunities here in the town of Fort Erie. So how did that sort of happen or come together for you? Did it involve a lot of traveling? Did it involve getting representation? I mean, I'm asking from the perspective of maybe somebody here in town that goes, oh, I'd like to do what Brittney's doing. Well, how does somebody do that?
I have super crazy formal acting training. I was always involved in public speaking, and I've been public speaking since I was pretty young, just through the school system. And it kind of went well as a musician to kind of jump into acting from there, because I understand the stage and how to be on stage and how to perform. And I mean, also with skating, I'm performing on the ice, which is the frozen stage essentially. But yeah, it's kind of come around. I do have representation. I've been involved in the industry with a couple different agencies since I was, I think probably like 9 or 10. I got picked up with an agent, I believe, through the Miss All Canadian pageant. And I popped around from a couple different agents over the years. And I've currently got some like loose representation with a non-exclusive agency, which means I can still do my own stuff without having to get approval from them, as long as I'm not working with their client directly. But I'm also kind of going to add some extra stuff to my plate. I'm actually kind of toying with the idea of opening my own agency.
Really?
I've got a number of years of experience now, and the only snag was the actor strike and the pandemic. So it kind of delayed the plans, because the industry pretty much ground to a halt.
Yes.
Over the last couple of years. So, but all that to say, I would love to start an agency in, the coming years, because it's now something you can do remotely. I don't have to have an office. I can rent a location if I need to do some in-person training. I can shoot all the headshots myself. And yeah, I would love to provide people with the tools they need to be successful with their self-tapes and auditions, and, how to read a script, how to dress for an audition, how to even just read your casting email. I know a lot of people get dropped from the casting just because they weren't reading the email correctly, or they submitted their self-tape incorrectly. just little tips and tricks like that. So,
well, one of the little tips and tricks, I've done zero modeling in my life, bear in mind. But I've just picked up just from looking at billboards, walking through a mall. Is there a rule somewhere in modeling where it's like you have to touch your hair every 10 seconds? Because it seems like that happens a lot.
You know what? It does. And I don't know. I don't think it's a written rule. I think it's one of those, what do I do with my hands?
Right. Yeah. It's just funny looking through like different model shoots. It's like, man, there's a lot of hair. You swear everybody here is selling shampoo or something, you know?
You know what? It's funny because I have a habit of doing it too, and I've got to stop because sometimes it's a little much.
No, it looks like you speak the language. That's the thing, right? And so if you were to go ahead with opening your own agency, would you base that, like, headquarters would be here in the town of Fort Erie?
I would think so. But most of the dealings are done online. I wouldn't really have to do a whole lot of stuff in person unless it was hosting a workshop or an in-person interview. It would probably be down this direction, at least some Fort Erie. But
like you're on the Fort Erie podcast. There was only one correct answer to that question, right?
It's just a lot of the film companies that are popping up right now down this way that aren't in Toronto are based in Niagara Falls, St. Catharines. So ideally, yes, different. Fort Erie would be great.
Yeah, you got to be different, right? I mean, if you take your modeling agency, Brittney, and you open it in Welland, I will never talk to you again.
I don't think that was on my top 10 list, if we're being honest.
Okay, fair. All right, that's fine. Let's talk about some of the things you have coming up, because I know you have a bunch of things happening now. We've no pun intended, we sort of danced around figure skating a couple of times. You have a figure skating event coming up in March, right?
Yes, yeah. So every year, our club, the Fort Erie Figure Skating Club, we have an ice show. Just kind of a chance for the kids to showcase what they've been doing all season. It's not some crazy high-end professional, stars on ice event, but it's so much fun, and the kids get so excited to show off what they've been doing all season. We've got our Can Skate program and our Star Skate program, and sometimes we get a little surprise performance from some of the coaches that have been around for a very long time and have no business probably being out there performing like we're kids again. But I know I hurt after the end of the season, that's for sure. But that'll be on March 3rd at the Fort Erie LeisurePlex, and there'll be more information. I'll call into Byrd Box to let you know what the details of that are, because I'm just in the process as one of the board members as well as a coach, just in the process of trying to get all of the details ironed out for that. But I will definitely keep you posted.
Yeah, I'd be happy to promote that on the Fort Erie podcast. That's great. And then there was, this was along the vein of music. You mentioned getting a little bit back into music. You've got something coming up at the end of March?
Yes, March 28th at Club Roma. It'll be a ticketed event. There's a bunch of other performers that will be coming out. It's more of a tribute show for sure. And I believe it's for Pasto Mental Health, if I remember correctly.
Okay.
And I want to say the Caverners will be playing as well.
So Caverners, and the tribute part was a tribute for Shania Twain, was that right?
Yes, yeah. So I will be tributing as Shania Twain.
Wow. Okay. So is country, is that like your forte? Because I know you were in like a country music video a couple of years ago. That was like one of your acting gigs, I think. I assume does that fall under acting or modeling, being in a music video?
It's definitely more acting, even if it's silent on camera. But yeah, I've done, I think I'm probably at 15 or 20 music videos now.
Oh, okay. I didn't realize.
Yeah. Scotty Kipfer, I'm his lead in most of his. He's a Canadian artist. Gort Bamford, I've been in, and I think of some other ones. There's been quite a few. But yeah, country is definitely my main vein in terms of performing. I did a little bit of opera, or like pop opera, for a number of years, and then I did kind of a combined show. What did I call that? It was from Opry to opera, like a play on the... It was just a little bit of country and then kind of pushed the second half into more of an opera. So it was interesting.
that does sound interesting, but you used a phrase a moment ago. You said pop opera. I have never heard, what the hell is pop opera?
So pop opera is, when you think of opera, you probably think of Phantom of the Opera. You probably think of like the pop culture classics.
I think of Ave Maria, because like my wife is formally trained in opera and is like, and Ave Maria is what comes to mind when I think of opera. But what? So go ahead. I'm sorry, I cut you off.
No, you're good. It's just more like opera that's touched into pop culture. Like I'm not going to sing you necessarily a piece from O mio bambino caro, which is it's a Gianni Schicchi. Number. That's like true deep cut opera, Mm-hmm. Where pop opera is stuff like Step Brothers has that one song that they sing at the end, and that's actually done by Andrea Bocelli. So he's more of like a pop opera. It's stuff that's popular in pop culture, I guess, is where I get the pop opera term.
I see. So there's no synth. There's no like, there's no beatboxing or anything. It's like, it's still opera.
No.
It's popular.
Yeah.
Got it. Okay. I thought there was like a remix here. Like you were taking like, classical opera songs and like putting them over a beat or something.
No, but I actually have taken, like pop culture, actual like pop songs. I Will Always Love You by Whitney Houston. I've taken her version and done a piano version, but in Italian and to more of an opera vibe. So I guess reverse of what you said.
was that for something specific? Specific job or show or?
No, I just used to do these performances, and sometimes it would be just a sole opera booking. And there's only so much common opera that you can do without being on a big stage in Toronto where people are looking to see opera. These were just like poke arounds for people to be like, oh my gosh, I recognize that song, but that's not in English. I don't know, more of a party trick than anything.
Well, I feel like you've been involved in so many things that we could probably keep talking forever, but we are going to have to draw things to a close sooner or later. So let me ask you, is there anything else you want to share with the town of Fort Erie, with listeners, anything at all?
I'm just proud to be a Fort Erie representative and a proud citizen of Fort Erie since 1992. So thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
It's Fort Erie's answering machine, the Byrd Box.
Welcome to the Byrd Box. This is Fort Erie's answering machine. It's the voicemail box I have set up for the Fort Erie podcast. You can call in, squawk about anything you want, and I'll play your messages right here on the Fort Erie podcast. I call it the Byrd Box because the last four digits spell BYRD. It's the only thing I could spell with the last four digits, 289-599-BYRD or 289-599-2973. Anyway, I always say you can call in for any reason you want, 24 hours a day. It could be something you saw around town, something you want to get off your chest, or I also invite you to call and respond to anything that you've heard on the Fort Erie podcast. And that's exactly what this listener did. A couple of episodes ago, I was asking for recommendations. Who was the best dentist in the town of Fort Erie? Listen to what this caller had to say.
Hey, I was just calling in about the best dentist in town. So I am someone who had no dental care growing up, and come high school, I got a referral to a dentist in town who ended up messing my teeth right up. Made me terrified of the dentist, had pain in my mouth all the time. So I ignored the dentist yet again for another between 5 to 10 years. Somebody had suggested Riverside Dental on Jarvis Street. So, hey, give it a shot. I go down and I see Dr. Eric. When I tell you that office is amazing, hands down the best. They made sure that I was comfortable. They checked in frequently when doing work. They made sure that I was frozen all the way through. They even called me after my procedure while I was at home just to check in, just to make sure that everything was going well and that there was nothing that they could offer to make it even better than how it was going. So for anyone looking for a dentist, I highly, highly recommend Dr. Eric's Dr. Eric's office at Riverside on Jarvis Street.
Well, that's great. That's great. I mean, we appreciate the recommendation. Thank you. Or I should say I do at the very least. Hopefully it helps out a few listeners too. I know for a fact dentists can vary in quality. A couple of episodes ago, I mentioned that the dentist that I see is, he's based in Niagara Falls. And I was saying, I don't have a lot of experience with Fort Erie dentists. Who do you recommend? I like that this caller, even though she said she had a horrible experience with a particular dentist, didn't identify who that was, but said, hey, I've seen Dr. Eric at Riverside, like what they're doing over there. When I say dentists can vary in quality, I mean, before moving to Niagara, when I lived in Toronto, I was kind of the same way. I hadn't seen a dentist in quite a few years. And I made an appointment kind of with one out of the blue, out of the yellow pages probably. And they came up with this whole list of things that had to be done. I needed 1 million fillings. There was, problems with this, that, and the other thing. And even their cleanup, like the prices they advertised, didn't come anywhere close to what I actually got on the bill. And I too did not have insurance. And then went to see another dentist, and lo and behold, said I needed no fillings. So go figure. I mean, it's kind of bizarre. There seems like there may be a little bit of a conflict of interest there when a business is for profit. It gives them a little bit of incentive to try to find problems where maybe there aren't any problems in the first place. But anyway, there's the recommendation from our caller for that message. Riverside Dental, Jarvis Street, Dr. Eric and his team. I think that's great. I love that you got a follow-up call after having some work done. I can't say that's ever happened in dentist history that I'm aware of, but we appreciate the recommendation. Thank you for calling in. Anyway, listeners, anything on your mind, anything you want to get off your chest, any recommendations around town, call the Byrd Box, 289-599-2973.
Have something you want to squawk about? Let the whole town know what's on your mind. Call the Byrd Box at 289-599-2973. That's 289-599-BYRD.
All right, joining me on the phone right now, I'm speaking with Gina Middagh. Gina, how are you doing?
I'm doing very well, Brent. How are you?
I'm doing great. Thank you for joining me. I know we had a brief chat just before the holidays regarding the Crystal Ridge Dream Center toy drive, but I wanted to have you back on the show to have a full chat about the Dream Center and everything you've got going on. But I'd be lying if I didn't say, I'm curious, how did that toy drive go? I mean, I saw a lot of people participating on social media, the Christmas toy drive to end 2023. What were the results of that?
It went absolutely amazing. We were able to help over 319 children, and there was over 17 local businesses and business owners that contributed to the organization for the toy drive. And the kids were blessed, and all the volunteers that came out to help, we were just so grateful to have them here and to participate, and just to see them filled with joy to be able to give back to their community was awesome.
Wow. So I want to make sure I heard you right. You said 319 kids?
319 children, yes.
That is remarkable, and that's in addition to, because there were other toy drives going on around town at the end of the year. I think the Canettes had one going on, and so this is in addition to all that. Just the Dream Center, 319 kids.
Just the Dream Center, 319 children, yes.
That is remarkable. Well, thank you, and thank your whole team for doing that.
No problem. We're happy to be here to do it.
Well, let's hope here in 2024 it'll be even bigger, even better. But I did also want to clarify one point. Last time I had you on the podcast, again, it was a brief chat, but I introduced you as Gina Sloggett. I've known you as Gina Sloggett forever, and now it's Gina Middagh. So you got married in the not too distant past, yeah?
I did. I just got married this past October, on October 21st.
Wow. Well, congratulations.
Thank you very much.
What's that like? You get to be miserable like the rest of us now?
Oh, not yet. We're nowhere near that yet, no.
Not driving each other crazy. Everybody's happy, doing well.
You got it, definitely.
Good. Well, let's talk about the Crystal Ridge Dream Center. What is it? What's it all about? When was it founded? Tell us about the Crystal Ridge Dream Center.
Sure. So it all starts basically back in 2019. Well, technically 2018, but we were founded in 2019.
Okay.
Where myself, my sister Annalise Vatier, and my mother Kathy Sloggett, we came across two other people in the community, John and Kathy Whitener, who also had a heart for Crystal Beach and a vision to help people in the community. And we spent many years on our own trying to do things like to have an organization, and just nothing seemed to work for us. Until we met them, we were able just to come together as a group of people that have the heart to give back to the community and serve. Down to this specific building, my mom has believed for over 25 years that this was the place that she was to have a community center. And sometimes you can have a dream and a vision for yourself, but sometimes you just need those extra people and the hands and support to come alongside you to turn a dream into a reality. And that's what happened back in 2019. We became affiliated with the Los Angeles Dream Center, which has over, I think, 100 dream centers across the world. So we are one of them. And our hearts are to serve the community in the real tangible ways, whatever that looks like for each community. Ours is basically, reaching out to the people, helping with food, helping with clothing, helping with education, helping with the children's program, which I'm sure I'll dive into a bit more after.
Sure.
But yes, it's just 5 people that came together that had a heart and desire, and it just shows if you have a dream in your heart to not give up, that when the time is right, things will happen for you.
So that's a powerful story, and that it's the Crystal Ridge Dream Center, founded not all that long ago, having a big impact on our local community, and this whole thing being driven by 5 people, and I assume volunteers as well. You must have volunteers that also help out at the Dream Center.
Most definitely. We have over, I think, about 65 volunteers that help out currently.
Wow. 65, you said.
65 volunteers, and altogether there's 6 staff members.
6 staff members, 65 volunteers. Are you on the hunt for new volunteers?
Yes, I will definitely say we would love anyone else that would like to come in. We could use help in the youth program if there's people that have a passion and a desire to work with children, that if it's with artwork, if it's with just playing games, someone that has a desire to be with kids, we would love to meet with them, have some coffee, give them a tour, and hopefully get them started after they hand in their vulnerable sector check.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, definitely want the vulnerable sector check. As far as programming goes, I mean, you mentioned food, serving the community. Some things going on with kids. I mean, what are some of the different programs that you offer the community?
No problem. So first, I'm going to start with the community kitchen program.
Yeah, please do.
We started that back in 2020 at Pastor Frank's church, Crystal Ridge Community Church, while we were waiting for our building to be completely renovated. Back then, we were serving about 300 people, 300 to 400 people twice a week. And so from now at the Crystal Ridge Dream Center, we've been in here since 2021. And we started the program on Tuesdays and Saturdays. But then due to funding, we had to decrease to 1 day a week. But we just have some good news to share that because of more funding coming in, we are now able to head back to doing 2 days a week. So the community kitchen program is like a drive-through pickup meal program that our volunteers and staff members come together, prepare the meal, and any individual in the community who is in need can just pull up to the side of the Crystal Ridge Dream Center on Tuesdays and Fridays from 11 to 1 to receive a meal.
Great. So as you say, this is open to everybody. This is non-denominational. I mean, anybody in the area who would like a free meal. I mean, they can come by the Dream Centers on Tuesday and Friday.
That is exactly correct.
Okay, great. Now you did mention something in there about funding, and I was curious. I mean, donations probably are a big part, I assume, of where you get your funding. But are there other sources? Do you get help elsewhere for some of these programs?
United Way has been a great help for sure. We do receive funding from them. We receive funding from like the Hamilton Community Foundation, Turkster Lumber Foundation, the Niagara Community Foundation as well. And yes, definitely big part is the donations from the community and private funders.
So let's talk about those donations and volunteering opportunities as well. What's the best way for somebody to get in touch with you if they want to make a donation, if they want to volunteer? How should they do that?
Just send us an email. So if anyone is interested, all they have to do is send us an email to crdreamcenter, spelled the American way, CENTER, @gmail.com.
Okay, so CR Dream Center, center spelled the American way, @gmail.com. Is that right?
Correct.
Okay.
And then also, we do have an opportunity if people would like to donate, they can head to our website, which is www.crystalridgedreamcenter.com, and they can donate through our PayPal account.
And at crystalridgedreamcenter.com, center is again spelled the American way?
You got it.
Okay, center rather than centra.
You got it. And we are a nonprofit charitable organization, so any donation over $20, they can receive a charitable tax receipt.
Okay, perfect. And now, somewhere implied in the name there, Crystal Ridge Dream Center, this is a point I keep coming back to because one thing, there's never a shortage of generosity in the town of Fort Erie, but we do have quite a number of nonprofits established for different things at different corners of our town. So when it's the Crystal Ridge Dream Center, that isn't to say that you exclusively seek to serve people in, Crystal Beach and Ridgeway. That this is open to the entire town of Fort Erie, correct?
That is correct. We are open to anyone that is in need, and we are not exclusive. You do not have to believe what we believe to come and participate in the programming, to receive food, to receive mentorship, support. We are all about just loving people, supporting the community, and also referring other people that come in. If there's things that we're not able to, help people with, we're definitely referring outside.
Great. So there's those food programs, and then what else? I think I kind of took you off track a little bit there because I was curious about the other offerings from the Crystal Ridge Dream Center. How else do you support the community?
So we support the community also with the Youth Impact Program. So currently, right now, we have 60 children that come to our program that are from the Ridgeway Crystal Beach area. They come on Mondays and Wednesdays from 3:30 to 5:30 p.m. We offer them free meals. We do the games with them, chocolate bar bingo, movie night, board game night, arts and crafts, life skills, Bible studies. Just a safe place for the kids to come and hang out, have fun, not have to worry about everything that happened during the day or what happened on the weekend. We're able to instill hope and, happiness and joy with the children just by letting them be kids and have a safe place to come to. That is the biggest thing right now. We also have a Mom Supporting Moms program. So if there's any moms in the community that are at home that are struggling with anxiety and depression, just needing encouragement and someone to lift them up and support them with any needs that they may have, if it's diapers, if it's groceries, if it's just someone to talk to vent, with being stuck at home with young children sometimes. Sure. You just need that other person to talk to. So we have that program. And then we also have the School of Music and Performing Arts program here. So anyone in need, either if it's an adult, a senior, a child, if there's someone that has a desire to learn a musical skill, they can sign up with us for 30 minutes for free music lessons on Thursdays. And that happens every Thursday. And we are actually hoping to open it up to a second day. But what that means, we are, again, in need of volunteers. If there's anyone that has a passion for, musical performing and teaching, we would love to have you come in for a meeting with us. So again, you can send us an email for that. And another program that we have, Brent, is our drop-in program. That happens on Wednesdays from 11 to 1. People are welcome to come in for a cup of coffee, for a lunch, play some cards. They can just talk with us. And they also have the opportunity to participate in a Bible study for those who are interested, and that is called Living Free. And that happens at the same time as the drop-in. So people have the opportunity to choose to participate in that if they'd like to.
Well, that is a whole roster of things going on. I mean, I'm one of the things I did not know about the music lessons, and I think that is fantastic. And it sounds like your vision, as one of the co-founders of the Crystal Ridge Dream Center, is not just to nourish people, their bodies, but it's kind of their mind and spirit as well. There's a social piece to connecting the community there as well. Is that a fair statement?
That is a fair statement, Brent. I do also want to add in that every Friday night, we do have a fellowship service night for those who are interested in participating. The doors open at 6:30 and it's from 7 to 9. So anyone is welcome to come if they are interested in receiving that spiritual support.
Wonderful. Okay. And what we've talked about the location, about coming by, and I assume most people know where you are, but for those who don't, where is the Crystal Ridge Dream Center?
The Crystal Ridge Dream Center is located on 385 Derby Road in Crystal Beach. It is kind of in between, Derby, Lincoln, and Erie Road.
Got it. Really, a hot dog alley, really, for those who've been around
exactly.
for a while. Yeah, okay.
Exactly. There you go.
Did you grew up in the town of Fort Erie?
Yes, we did. My sister and I, we grew up here in Ridgeway, Crystal Beach area. We were the kids that used to, run the streets, because my mom had to work 3 jobs. And, we saw firsthand, like obviously growing up in this area, how important it is to have a place for children to go to, right? Because we were the ones hanging out at Avondale or Tim Hortons. But
right.
If only there was this place here all those years ago, but I guess I wouldn't be who I am today if I didn't go through those things to be where I am now.
Yeah, I mean, it's no secret. My wife and I moved to town about 10 years ago. And so it's been kind of cool for us to see some of the up and coming changes. And that stretch of Crystal Beach is almost unrecognizable from when we first got to town. But you've been here longer than I have. Clearly, you're older than 10. So, I mean, you've certainly seen some changes, particularly through Crystal Beach. And my understanding was that around the time the amusement park closed, what was called Hot Dog Alley was not the nicest place in town to spend time. Is my understanding of history correct?
That is definitely correct. Yes.
Okay. So what are some of the things you've seen change for the better? I mean, it could be the entire town or Crystal Beach specifically, but I mean, you've got a firsthand sort of look at some of the changes and the development along the way. What do you feel is moving in the right direction?
Definitely all the things that Phil Smith has been doing for Crystal Beach and in Derby Road, and then advancing Crystal Beach, the stuff that they've done, to beautify and help and bring supports within the community, and Friends of Crystal Beach as well. And just about, people in the community and organizations coming together for a greater purpose than themselves, like realizing that, some people have an area to beautify, the community, and some want to instill hope and help the people that are living in the houses within the community that are struggling. So it's like, in a way, we are all working together for a greater purpose.
Yeah, it's interesting because your answer there focuses so much on community, about people coming together to do great things. And you mentioned Phil Smith, who's been a multiple time guest on the Fort Erie podcast. And I think it's difficult to talk about Crystal Beach and some of the changes, say, over the past 30 years, without his name entering the conversation.
Right, most definitely. I feel like he's brought in like a lot of color, and warmth to this community, for all the businesses that are coming in here and stuff, so we're blessed and we're happy to be a part of this amazing community.
Absolutely. And is there anything else you want to share with listeners before we wrap up?
Just how excited that we are, for people coming in and for, those that want to be a part of the organization. Again, like, you do not have to believe, what we believe, but we are a Christian faith-based organization, but we accept anyone that just has that desire to do something, to give back to their community. And we have people here like Don Kendrick, who used to actually go to, many, many years ago, they used to do things in the community here in this building when she was a child. So having her to be able to come back into this organization and give back to the children in the community now, like, it's a beautiful thing.
Community events coming up in Fort Erie.
If you're on the hunt for something to do, Fort Erie, I've collected a pile of community events coming up. This first one is not going to apply to everybody, but Garrison Place is having an open house tomorrow. That's February 21st at 2 o'clock p.m. If you want to explore the possibilities of life at Garrison Place Retirement Residence, you are free to drop on by. I believe that's from 2 until 4 p.m. The Byrd Historical Society presentation is coming up at the Crystal Ridge branch of Fort Erie Public Library. That's also happening tomorrow at 6 o'clock. This presentation is by the Heritage Committee, all about the Stone House in Ridgeway. Sound immersion meditation is also happening tomorrow at 7 o'clock p.m. If you're not sure what that is, best description I can give you is you can immerse yourself in what the host is calling healing sounds. You can be healed by sound, allegedly. If you want to check this one out, head on down to Sessions on the River. That's the space being used. Registration is $38 on ticketscene.ca. The Legion, Fort Erie Legion specifically, is having their Friday night fish fry this week, 3:30. That gets going. 3 o'clock, you can start placing phone orders at 905-871-9711. Takeout or dine in. Fish meals, which include the sides, start at $12. Let's see, Valentine's Tween Dance. That is going to be happening at the Fort Erie Optimist Club on Gilmore Road, coming up on February 23rd at 7 o'clock. This is a Valentine's themed dance for kids ages 8 through 13. Tickets are $10. Can be purchased by emailing feotweendance@outlook.com. The Jimmy Rankin Trio is set to perform at the Sanctuary Center for the Arts. That's again happening February 23rd at 7:30 p.m. Jimmy Rankin has performed there before, but this, I believe, will be his first time performing as a trio. It is a seated show, and you'll have to get tickets from ticketscene.ca. The Ridgeway Crystal Beach Kin Club is having their Winter Festival. That's coming up February 24th at 9 o'clock, starting at 9 o'clock in the morning, 9 until 4. This is essentially a vendor show with some food, raffles, door prize, that kind of thing. 2983 Hyman Road in Ridgeway. It is free admission with donation of a non-perishable food item. Coldest night of the year, which I've been talking about on this podcast a whole bunch, is also happening this Saturday, February 24th at 4 o'clock. If you've not already registered, you can head over to cnoy.org. If you'd like to make a donation to my team, it's buywithbrent.ca/cnoy. This is like a walkathon or a family-friendly walk in support of the Brain Injury Association of Fort Erie. The route that we're walking begins at Greater Fort Erie Secondary School. If you like to play trivia and you like to help people out, check out Trivia for a Cause. That's happening at the Ridgeway Legion on February 24th, also Saturday, 7 o'clock. This is a trivia night in support of various different charitable causes, community programs. You can register a team of 6 for $120. The Douglas Heights Senior Center is hosting a seminar about healthy eating as we age. If you want to learn more about eating habits that support healthy aging, that's happening on Leap Day, February 29th, 2024 at 1 o'clock p.m. Douglas Heights Senior Center is, of course, located at 265 High Street, and you can register, I believe, through their website using an email address. And lastly, I'll mention the Brock Dance Recital. If you're not sure what this is these are dance performances from a whole bunch of different dance groups, including students from Brock and students locally. This is happening on March 2nd. 2 shows, 1 o'clock p.m. and 5 o'clock p.m. at Greater Fort Erie Secondary School. Tickets are $15 a piece and available at eventbrite.ca.
You're listening to the Fort Erie Podcast.
We started off today's episode talking about Valentine's Day. I got a bit of a sweet note last week from a listener. It was a day late, February 15th, but I'm going to call it a special Valentine that I received anyway. It goes like this. It says, "Hi, Brent. I'm a big fan of the podcast, and I just wanted to tell you I'm totally loving these last few seasons even more. I love how you are more unfiltered and a bit more feisty." Feisty, that's the first time I've heard somebody ever use that word to describe me or this podcast. Thank you, listener. I appreciate that feedback. That was nice to receive. As a lot of you know, regular listeners, when I relaunched this podcast early last year, I certainly tried to be more authentically myself. New format, kind of being a little more authentic with listeners. It is a bit ironic that I say I tried hard to authentically be myself, because being myself actually takes almost no effort at all. It's very easy for me to do. Now, she used the words unfiltered and a bit more feisty. I might just say unhinged. I don't know. Thanks for listening. I appreciate that. That's the episode for today. Look out for episode number 85 of the Fort Erie podcast next week. Should be out on Tuesday. As always, get notified when new episodes are released by subscribing to the Fort Erie podcast on Spotify or Apple Podcasts. There is still time if you, dear listener, would like to make a donation to my Coldest Night of the Year campaign. I'll be walking this Saturday along with dozens of others to raise money for the Brain Injury Association of Fort Erie. Whether you can spare $2 or $200, it's all good. Everything helps to support a great cause. Visit buywithbrent.ca, click the CNOY link at the top of the page. Get your messages in on the Byrd Box. Anything on your mind, anything you want to squawk about, 289-599-BYRD, and I will chat with you again soon.
You've been listening to the Fort Erie Podcast with your host, Brent Jones. Never miss an episode. Subscribe on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, or visit theforteriepodcast.com.